Alright, hello everyone. Today I bring you my Consecrated Path of Endurance Juggernaut. This is a build that revolves around endurance charge stacking, and with endurance charges it gets, of course, its defensive layers as well as offensive layers, because you have some increases and more damage per endurance charge. So yeah, it's a very fun build to be playing. It's like a lot of AoE, very big clear. Would highly recommend it to play it if you want to blast maps. It's not so much a bosser, but it works great for just any mapping content from what I've experienced. So with all that being said, let's just start with the passive tree and go from there. Um, but yeah, first of all, why Juggernaut? I think there's a couple of reasons, but the most important one is the endurance charge upkeep from unflinching. This says that you get one endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. Now, of course, you can easily get this with like a small cluster or something like that as well. Um, but it's just a nice note to have already like that, that you don't need to get another cluster for that. But then there's some very big benefits to endurance charge beside that. So we have the unyielding one, which gives us increased damage per endurance charge, and also very importantly, increased area of effect per endurance charge. So that means that we get a bunch of AoE and a bunch of extra damage just for free because we are stacking up to, well, you can push it up to 18 endurance charges. So that's an insane amount of extra damage and area of effect. And then besides that, we are using Unrelenting, which allows our endurance charge to give us even more damage reduction than it's already giving, really turning this build into a very tanky build, allowing for very big max hits to be tanked with this setup. It's very comfortable in that regard. And then, of course, you have the comfort node of the Juggernaut, which is unstoppable, which means you cannot be stunned or your action speed cannot be modified below base value. So any like slows from yeah, they don't really do much on you, and it's just a very comfortable ascendancy to have overall. You could potentially drop this or the more damage reduction for Unbreakable if you're going to do content that's very heavy on the chaos damage. Additionally, you could also take some of the alternate ascendancies there if you would like to, but I don't think it's necessary. This is what I've been playing with, and it feels amazing. So with that being said, about the pathing, so first thing you might notice is a lot of tattoos. We are running Supreme Ostentation, so we don't care about any of the stats from the nodes. So therefore we have also tattooed the whole tree with Warcry reduction, because we are scaling off the Echoes of Creation helmet and overexertion support. So we want to have our Warcries up as frequently as possible. Now there is a nice Warcry cooldown reduction wheel right here. But since we use an elegant Jurus here, we kind of lose that possibility, and therefore I opted to fix that with tattoos to make sure that my uptime is at least close to matching the attack speed of my Consecrated Path of Endurance. So yeah, from there on, we move over, we get some life, we get some attack speed, some physical damage. We continue on. Then we have our Warcries. The Warcries exert an additional attack, very nice, just for the upkeep. And Warcries cannot exert travel skills, so that makes it so that our Warcries do not get used up by our leap slam in between. You can also craft this on the belt as a craftable suffix, but since I'm running Mage Belt in this setup right now, I had to get it here. If you do have the suffix crafted on your belt, you can have the Warcries with a minimum of 10 power. It's very nice to sort of set up your Warcries before you engage with any enemies in combat. For example, you can also use your Enduring Cry without any enemies near to start ramping up your endurance charges, to be a bit safer, so to speak, right? Because if you're going to go in with one endurance charge, you're going to be relatively squishy. The build sort of revolves around having those endurance charges, but the good thing is the first pack you blow up, you are set for the rest of the map, right? But yeah, that is something to be worry about. Then moving on, some life and armor nodes, some cost reduction, and some mana reservation efficiency. Here just some generic damage nodes. Alternatively, you could also take the physical damage converter to fire here instead of opting for the avatar of fire. That means that you can have some extra conversion where you say physical is extra something else, or fire is extra cold or whatever. That will then, of course, do a bit more for you, because now you can only do fire damage if you have the Avatar of Fire. Moving on, more life nodes and the life mastery, just because with the current setup I'm rocking, I do not have a whole lot of flat life on my items, so this was better than a little 5% node somewhere in the end. Continuing along, max physical damage, more physical, just to scale our damage that gets converted to fire damage later. Then we have more life and more evasion and armor, with importantly the increased armor per endurance charge node. You could also use the immunity to bleeding if equipped helmet has higher armor than evasion for bleed immunity. I've resolved this through the Flask, but that can also be a comfortable pick, especially because this build does not have a lot of regen in it. So dots such as bleeding are sort of the enemy of this build. Therefore, having that bleed immunity is kind of comfortable to have. Moving along, we have a Watcher's Eye here with the non-channeling skills have minus all the mana cost. Very important to make sure that you can easily keep all your war cries being fired from your auto exertion. You don't need it on the eye though, you can also craft it on your amulet if you want, but I just chose to solve it this way, as for how my amulet was, I did not have any craftable prefix spaces anymore, so that's why I chose this solution. And then a bit of mana, recouped from the damage taken just for comfort. The increased attack damage by precision is nice. First of all, I'm too soccer starved to run precision in the first place, but even if I could, it's only like a 2-point-something% upgrade because we have so many increases already from other sources right now. So maybe an attack speed or crit if you are going to plan to go that route will be worth it. Important to note, I also have one tattoo here that is not a Warcry one, it's the attack damage leeches life, to make sure that we're able to leech life, as it says. Then we have our endurance charge and frenzy charge node, and then of course if we're endurance charge stacking we have to take this set of endurance charge buffs, and then some increased damage per endurance, frenzy or power charge. Also important to note is that, let me just quickly delete just in case, nice, is that if you have the cannot be ignited while maximum endurance charges, it's a nice benefit kind of thing. But a lot of the time you're going to be expending an endurance charge to cast your Consecrated Path of Endurance, and the odds are that in between you do not have the maximum, right? You're just one below maximum while you're about to gain another one. So I found that this node is not really as effective to solve your ailment immunity. Now that I've Mage Blood, I've done this with Storm Shroud. Before that, I just had to deal with some Ignites. So yeah, something to be wary about. Maybe you can think of another way to resolve it, of course. But I was not as bothered by it, to be honest. I just kept leeching enough. So moving up north, as I just mentioned, the Storm Shroud for the ailment immunity through the cannot be shocked flask, or reduce effective shock flask, I should say. More endurance charges, more life, and of course the classic increased max life if there's no life modifiers on your body. Then we are running resolute technique, so we don't have to worry about any accuracy. That does mean that we cannot do any crit damage, right? So it does lower the ceiling of the build by a bit, right? I think if you look at the crit setups, they can push to up to 200 mil DPS, like some crazier numbers. Whereas this build is now sitting around 40 mil DPS, which is burst DPS because it includes the prismatic tincture, which is another 30% more compared to without. But yeah, it makes it very comfortable. Do note that if you choose to go this route, it is pretty hard to pivot to the crit version because you need to do quite a lot of things differently in terms of gearing, in terms of auras, in terms of passive tree, etc., etc. So yeah, it's not an easy switch, I would say. But I think this is more than comfortable for the mapping content available at 3.29. So with that being said, we have the Rage Wheel with our source of Intimidation. Then we also have a little cluster here. So this cluster has Overlord on it, which allows us to get Fortify on hit. That frees up the implicit on our body. And then we have Field of Fight to make sure that we also have a source of Mana Leech, because otherwise we leech no mana. To that we added a medium cluster, exerted attack cluster, which gives us onslaught for when we Warcry. Well, we Warcry at least once per second, so we always have onslaught up because of this. And then we have increased armor per 5 power for 8 seconds when you Warcry up to maximum 100%. Well, if you're next to unique, you get 20 power, so that's already 100%. So basically 100% increased armor right there. I would say not very necessary. I think you could go for the one which says increased damage of exerted attacks. But this is just a cluster I crafted earlier when I was in need of a bit more armor back in the day, and I didn't really replace it just yet. So yeah, you can do either or. Then the Forbidden Flame and Flash that I'm running is the Tukohama, which gives you the Fist of War, and another one, I forgot the name, but it's the Berserker Ascendancy that sort of buffs all the skills that are in your body. It's very strong, right, because we are using a build that only attacks every so often and does one big attack, so those buffs are really beneficial in this kind of build compared to a build that relies a lot more on fast, rapid attacks. So yeah, it's a very comfortable pick. It's very cheap. I think it's like 1 div for each jewel, or maybe even less. And it's like a 30% more damage comparatively. So it's a very great Flame Flash combo to get, I would say. Then moving on to the right, we have some max res. Like I said, the Avatar of Fire, which converts your physical to fire. And as we already have 50% conversion from the skill itself innately, that means we have 100% conversion of our physical to fire, so that's great. Then the Elegant Hubris, so you want one that's by Caspiro, which means you have access to the Supreme Ostentation node, which makes it so that we no longer have any attribute requirements. Given the fact that there is a relatively high strength requirement, we have quite a bit of intelligence requirement to get our higher level curses. We have a decent dex requirement for our Blood Rage, so this just sort of strips all of that, especially given the fact that we are running 2 unique rings. So we have very little space to actually get attributes on our gear anywhere. So this is just a very comfortable node to be picking up. I do have a day 3 POB included, which probably does not have this yet. So you don't need it straight away if you're doing like a more budget setup. But yeah, once you go a bit further to the build, highly recommend it. And there's another reason why this is so great, because this has the option to change the nodes into 10% increased damage per endurance charge, which if you're rocking 17 endurance charge is 170% increased damage on just one node. And also, right, the good thing is it's generic increased damage, so it will also work on stuff like your Herald of Ash on those explosions, right? So it's a very good node to have. Because of this, I have 2 of those, right here and here. This jewel was like 3 diff or something. I think if you are looking in the range of your Thread of Hope, and you can check out this one, this one, this one, this, and these 2, there's plenty of options where there's at least 2 with increased endurance charge that are within the realm of affordability. Other than that, this one increased fire damage with attack skill is also decent, but it's like only half as effective as this one, obviously. So yeah, you want ideally at least 2 of these increased damage per endurance charge once. So that's it for this part, and then moving up, we have the Divine Shield node. So what this does is we regain energy shield based on physical damage that we have prevented. Well, since we have a lot of armor and we have a lot of endurance charges, we prevent a lot of the physical damage to us, so we're also regenerating a lot of energy shield back whenever we take physical damage. And one of the ways we take physical damage is by harming ourselves. Because we have the Echoes of Creation, which says when you attack, take 18% of life as physical damage for each Warcry exerting the attack. So basically what this does is this makes sure that even though we are hurting ourselves, we are also regenerating it back, and that way we are staying healthy while expanding our own life pool to get the benefits of Echoes of Creation. And besides it, of course, it also helps with physical hits from monsters, because it's like an extra source of recovery against that, boosting your EHP against physical hits, basically. Then moving on, we have more life nodes and the Runecraft of Treachery. So this says that you gain 15% increased reservation efficiency of skills, but the auras from your skills, which affect your allies, also affect your enemies. However, when we look at our auras, I can quickly show you. Herald of Ash does nothing for them. Auto Exertion, of course, does nothing for them as well. Blood and Sand is a stance, and this stance does not affect your allies, therefore does not affect your enemies. And Clarity, we don't really care if the enemy has some mana regeneration. So in this case, it's just a free 15% reservation efficiency. Very cheap graft to get as well. I think like 20 chaos, so definitely get that. And then lastly, we have some more damage nodes and exposure of at least 18%. And then of course the Thread of Hope, like I showed, to get access to these nodes right here. Also get access to the extra life nodes and chaos rest right here. And as an endurance charge stacker, we take the endurance charge. I think that speaks for itself. I think that is just about the whole tree covered. Just double checking I didn't miss any jewels. Nope. Alright. Then, with that being said, let's have a look at the gear that we are rocking and how you can craft it. So let's start with the, I guess, centerpiece of this whole build, which is the Eventuality Rod. So this is a specific base from Heist, which says 1 maximum power charge and 1 maximum endurance charge. So that's very great to have. In order to craft this, you would want to get a base as such, and you're going to hit it with physical damage essences, the flat physical damage. You're going to keep hitting it until you hit the hybrid increased physical damage. So there's you can see the tier 3 there, increased physical damage and accuracy rating. If you have that, you're going to roll on prefixes cannot be changed and use a Veiled Exalt Orb. And then you want to hit a prefix with that. And then once you unveil the prefix, the odds are of you getting a increased physical roll are pretty high. I don't know the exact odds, but that is the best way that I know of to get this. At that point, your prefixes are done. Then you can use prefixes cannot be changed and use the Harvest Bench for Reforged Speed to get some more attack speed on there. There is a 1 in 12 chance that all your suffixes will fill, so this is slightly risky. At that point, you would still have a high PDPS war stuff to sell if you want to try again. But assuming they didn't fill, hopefully none of them filled, then you can have craft on crit chance and then use a Shaper Exalted Orb. Of course, using the new mechanic to get more results and to hope for the +1 to maximum endurance charge, which is very big for the build. And then you can craft on the increased damage per endurance charge. This is the rod that you want for a Resolute Technique setup. If you're going the crit route, you're probably gonna want to get a crit chance on there as well. You might even want to sacrifice the hybrid for a hits cannot be evaded craft, something like that. But yeah, this is like, I would say, the kind of rod that you want if you're going the Resolute Technique setup that I'm showing right here. Then the helm, well, not much to craft there. Just one thing you need to watch out for, which is make sure you have the more damage for each Warcry as a max roll. I think if you have enough endurance charges, you can take the 20% of life as physical. It's fine. Like you have enough mitigation of physical damage to not feel that percentage. So that does make it easier to go for an affordable corrupt potentially. I didn't really look into it, and I'm already saving up for my new build. But yeah, that's something to be worth looking into. Then for the amulet, so what you want is the Taurus Talisman, which has +1 to maximum endurance charges on it. It does mean you can no longer put an anoint on there, but yeah, we only care about getting as many endurance charges as possible, right? So that was really great. I crafted this probably not in the most optimal way. I just went to the Harvest Bench and I used Reforged Chaos. There's, I don't know what the exact odds are, you can hit +1 to all Chaos spell skill gems, but other than that, you'll always be getting some form of Chaos resistance. I kind of did that until I was happy with the suffixes I hit, and then I slammed on life, luckily. And from there, I used the Warlord Exalted Orb to get the increased damage per endurance charge roll on there, which again is a very big damage increase. I think it's around 8% for that roll alone, so it's quite significant. And then some more fire and chaos res. It's very important to get chaos res on here as well as on the craft, because we have so limited pieces we can craft on, right? We only have 3 pieces to craft all of our chaos res on if we do not want to use our flasks for that. So with that being said, that's why we also have a body here with a fractured chaos resistance. I then use the endurance charge essences that give you a reduced extra damage from crits per endurance charge. So this basically makes us crit immune. And I spammed those until I had some additional physical damage reduction. You could go for a bit higher, because I only rolled the tier 4 here. I think tier 3 and above is a 1 in 17 chance to roll, so it is a couple of div of essences to roll that, but from there on your suffixes are already done, right? And then you can just use the Eldritch currency to finish up your prefixes, get a decent amount of armor that you're happy with, and then just call it a day. Crafted on some max res and physical taken as for more physical mitigation. Then the ring, so I'm rocking a corrupted calm sign, which has a +1 max endurance charge corrupt, because we want as many endurance charges as possible. These are, as the make of the video, I think around 38 divines right now, so they are relatively expensive. The good thing is that Calendar's Touch is only 7 or 8 divine, so once you have one, you only need the Calendar's Touch to get the other effect. Until that point, there is a plenty of interesting unique rings that you have a +1 endurance charge corrupt on that you can run instead. So don't run uncorrupted calms. I would say run either a rare ring with a max endurance corrupt or something like that. I think if I go to my history, I just sold an old one, I think. No, there's another different one, never mind. But I had some rare rings as well, which had like corrupt +1 endurance charge and bleeding cannot be inflicted on you, and then some resistance modifiers, right? Like it's a very big value there compared to just running a regular comms. But yeah, I would say get this ASAP after you get the rest of your gear sorted baseline. Then the gloves, well, like I was saying earlier, chaos rest, very important. For the gloves, I chose a full energy shield base. This is to make sure that we are able to utilize our divine shield, right, to mitigate that physical damage. So what I did is I got one with the chaos rest. Then I ended up slamming it with the maximum energy shield essence, the flat energy shield essence, until I hit some decent energy shield. And then I used the mechanic to try and hit either life or a big increased energy shield. I hit the tier 1 increased energy shield, and that was my prefixes done. Then I used a prefix cannot be changed Veiled Chaos to get the lightning and chaos resistance, because I really needed to get closer to 20% in order to be able to hit my chaos rest cap. So crafting it all was not going to be sufficient, sadly, because as you can see right now, we are only 1% over cap. If you were to get a higher fracture on your body, you wouldn't have to do this, so that's probably more beneficial. So I guess the advice I would give you is make sure you don't skim on the chaos rest fracture on your body, so you can just craft on here, because the odds of getting the lightning chaos or fire chaos or cold chaos are not as great, because there's quite a lot of suffixes from the veiled modifiers that you can get. So I would not recommend this. I would recommend just crafting it on. You could then maybe do prefixes cannot be changed reforged speed for a natural attack speed roll, or still veiled chaos, see if you hit it. If not, there's also some attack speed veiled chaos or attack speed while focus, which can also be nice. But yeah, I crafted on attack speed just for the comfort. It's also nice for leaf slamming around, and it just makes everything feel a bit more responsive. Of course, the build doesn't scale as great with attack speed, because we are waiting for our exerts to happen, and only then do our hits really do a lot of damage. But still, they're extra attacks, which still do damage in between, right? So it's not, it's never bad. It just doesn't scale as well as it would maybe with other builds attack speed. Then for the boots, I got some wind screams with a maximum endurance charge corrupt. There is, I forgot the name of the boots, but they have +1 maximum endurance charge also in the text themselves. So if you get one with the max endurance charge corrupt on there as well, you could get even more endurance charges. But it was like unaffordable, and these pair of boots cost me 50 chaos. So, and with this, I can have an additional curse, which means I can run both elemental weakness as well as flammability, which is a big damage increase, even more than the additional endurance charge would give me, I think, even. So, yeah, there's that. Then the last item, the Mage Blood. Don't think there's much to say there. We don't care on the stats on there. We care a bit on the resist on there. But yeah, it's just a 4-flask Mage Blood, what can I say? What's more interesting, I think, is to talk about the flasks that are attached to this Mage Blood. So we are using a Quicksilver flask. Obviously, I feel like everyone wants to zoom, right? So I always run Quicksilver with a reduced effective curses, which gives us curse immunity. you don't necessarily need this curse immunity if you have other plans with your Flask suffixes. You could, for example, also take the your elemental resistances cannot be lowered by curses, so that yeah, mitigates those kind of curses. And then stuff like temporal change already doesn't affect you, so then and bleeding would not affect you. So maybe enfeeble will be one of the few things that are annoying to get. Um, but yeah, I feel it's just a comfort pick. I might swap it out, but we'll see. And then I'm running the Tri-Ally setup to get our max resistance to 88 or 87%. And also it helps us free up the suffixes in terms of resistances to focus fully on the chaos resistance and then some nice other suffixes. But yeah, on these flasks I have the reduced chance to avoid being shocked. So this is for our ailment immunity together with Storm Shroud. We have the immunity to bleeding and corrupted blood during effect. You don't need this necessarily, right? Like I said, you have the mastery right here you could use for bleeding immunity. You could take corrupted blood immunity here, or potentially you could maybe get a Thread of Hope with corrupted blood immunity, because Thread of Hope, Master Ring are very cheap and common, right? So it's not unreasonable to get one of those, I think. Although, I don't know, I didn't check, so maybe they're more expensive than I'm thinking right now. And then last flask I have regenerate life per second during effect. And that is because, like I said, those are sort of our weakness. So having a bit of extra life regen available to us is just very comfortable. Then speaking of the skills, so we have our Enlightened support with our auto exertion. So that means that these 4 war cries are getting automatically triggered constantly. It doesn't really matter what you put in. The most important one is Intimidating Cry. This one exerts the next 2 melee attacks you perform, and exerted attacks deal double damage. So that's a very big buff, right? Double damage is insane. With that being said, also you really want to make sure it's 20% quality, because the quality affects the cooldown recovery rate. So the more quality, the more often this gets triggered, and the more of your attacks have double damage. So therefore you also want to make sure that at least this one is in a red socket, as well as your auto exertion, which gives your other supporter skills even more cooldown recovery rate, to make sure that your Intimidating Cry cooldown is as low as possible. One thing you might also notice is if you were to socket these gems in your royal, your Echoes of Creation, it will give you a higher PoB number. It will say, oh, you do more damage now. That is because of the +1 cooldown use. Technically speaking, in the window that the damage is being calculated, you would have an extra cooldown, so you could time it in such a manner that you would have higher uptime on your skill. But in reality, since we are using auto exertion, it will just instantly consume the cooldown and you have no benefit. So it will just inflate your PoB numbers without doing anything for your build at all. So don't be fooled by that. But regardless, since we are running them in a 6-link, we have them in the weapon anyway. Then for some auras, so we are rocking Blood and Sand for slightly less area of effect, but to have more area damage, just a very big damage increase. Herald of Ash, so that is all the overkill damage that we do, and since we do very big hits, we have a lot of overkill damage, gets exploded and propagated to nearby enemies. What you could do instead is to use the Herald of Purity. It will give you slightly less damage increase in terms of just a flat increase, but because you have physical extra fire 20% and it's only 12% more physical, but you get 4 Sentinels of Purity, which, if I'm correct, they count as allies, which will make it so that your Rallying Cry gives you another 20% more damage. So yeah, and then bottom line, it is a better single target setup, but honestly, the explodes with Herald of Ash are so satisfying that I would highly recommend just rocking this. Unless you're really struggling for single target early, then you could opt in for the Herald of Purity. One side note is, if there's nothing to kill, you don't have anything to summon your Sentinels of Purity back. So you would have to run maybe the Worm Flask, right? That summons the worms to have this upkeep consistent somehow. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Clarity for the Watcher's Eye, and then Enlighten to support it all, to make sure that we have some mana left over to actually cast our skills. We are running Elemental Weakness together with Flammability on an Arcanist Brand, just so they're automatically triggered, as well as the fact that this only costs 20 mana. Otherwise this costs like 20, this costs 35, it's already 55. Mana pool already gets very low, if then some Warcry's trigger and you want to attack, and Frostblink, it gets too expensive. So just being able to throw this down once, set and forget, is very comfortable. We are using Blood Rage, so this gives us some extra attack speed during its effect, as well as some extra leech, and it gives us Frenzy Charge on kill. So these are sorts of Frenzy Charges, which is just very comfortable to have in terms of the speed that you can go through the maps. Then we have Rallying Cry with Urgent Orders. So yeah, that's a Rallying Cry I just talked about. It gives you a buff based on the allies there, and Urgent Orders just to make sure that we can cast it a bit faster, as it is a manual cast and you don't want to be spending too much time on that. Then we have our Frostblink and our Leaf Slam, both as movement skills. I think that is about it for the skills and auras. And then we have the main skill, of course, which is the Consecrated Path of Endurance. So as you can see, we have 50% already converted, like I said earlier, but we have a 4-second cooldown. Now we can bypass this cooldown by expending an endurance charge, and since we always have endurance charge generating, because as you can see, if I now hit myself with this helm, doesn't count here in this area, I guess. Let me go elsewhere. As you can see, if I hit myself with the helm, the endurance charges start generating. So because of that, we always have endurance charges available because we're constantly doing self-damage due to the exerted attacks, and that causes this to work. Then we have endurance charge on melee stun. So this is just more damage per endurance charge. Well, since we're stacking 15 endurance charges, that is just 60% more damage, right? A very big increase. Then overexertion support, more damage per Warcry. We have 5 Warcries affecting our slam at the best case scenario. So that is 50% more damage, and another 14% more regardless if it's just being exerted by at least one, which it almost always is, and then some more increased damage. Then we have the melee physical damage. I think it speaks for itself, just more melee physical damage, less attack speed, which this build doesn't really care about that much, right? Because as I explained earlier, we do not scale as much from attack speed as we scale from having a big hit being influenced by as many exerts as possible. So therefore attack speed isn't as beneficial. That's the same reason we run Pulverize. We get more area damage, quite a lot actually, 49%, but we get a significant attack speed penalty. But again, that gives our exerts a bit more time to trigger, to make sure that the attack, whenever we do attack, is exerted as much as possible. And also it gives us a big area of effect increase to make our hits even bigger. And then lastly, some elemental damage with attack support, just to get some more elemental damage on there. That's it for the supporting skills and the main skill. Yeah, I can just quickly showcase a map. I think I was most recently running some rituals, so I was just hop right in and just show you roughly how the build plays, how you need to play it. So the moment you come in, what I do is I pop my Consecrated Path of Endurance to make sure that my endurance charge starts stacking. That way I have some endurance charge before I engage in combat. I'll be sure to activate my Blood Rage to make it so that I can gain Frenzy Charges. There we go. Now we can get Frenzy Charges. And then the whole build is just running around, slamming, and everything just dies. You need to make sure to cast your Rallying Cry every once in a while to make sure that you have the uptime on that. And other than that, there is not much more to it. You can, for example, in a situation like this, say, okay, I'm gonna pop down the Arcanist brand to make sure that stuff in the area is being cursed. Which, yeah, I mean, it's a very straightforward build, very comfortable. I think with the 15 endurance charges, you are very tanky. Like I said, the big downside is you are not as strong against dots, and also you don't have a source of insta leech, so your single target sustain isn't as great. So I would not recommend this as a bosser, for example. Like, you can get all your void stems on this, but as exclusively a bosser, I would not recommend it. Abyss, great content for this, right? Like a lot of rare spawning in, but since we're blowing up whole screens with the size of AoE that we have, Yeah, it's just a very fun build to play. I think, speaking of that, that does bring me to one note that I want to make. Just walk to a bit of safety here. When it comes to the skill overrides, early it's very fun to have. Later I'm no longer using it because the AoE got so big, it just got too obnoxious. As you can see, this black hole effect just sort of blows up my whole screen, and I can't really see what's happening anymore, and I get like a reverse flashbang every time. So because of that, I am no longer using a skill override. So keep that in mind if you're gonna play this, that you yeah, might not want that. Yeah. So I can finish the whole map, but I think I have showcased what the build is capable of. So with all that being said, if you made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, need any help with the build, or maybe have any suggestions or ideas on how I could improve it, definitely leave them down below. And with all that being said, have a nice day.